Welcome back into Sports Talk, another episode, Blaze. Thursday, what is the date today? May the 14th?
Yeah.
Already the school year rounding out. We got a lot to get to. GHSA playoff action as well as GIAA playoff action. But we're going to start in the GHSA, and we're going to start with a series that took place last night, wrapped up last night, Lanier County and Baconton for a spot in the state championship. Lanier County gets the job done, and they did so in very dramatic fashion, you could say. The first thing I want to talk about or discuss is we knew this was going to be a pitcher's duel, right? Grant Gano, Alex Contreras, Hudson Coronati. Did the final scores of 3-0 and 2-1 shock you in any way?
No, I mean, honestly, like we said, we talked about last week, we knew it was going to be hard. We knew the bats weren't going to be able to do what they've been doing just because the pitching is just so highly touted. Were you surprised that Hudson Coronati didn't start game one for Baconton?
I was going to get there. That is a very good question. I'm not. I thought it was a strategic move by Baconton, and I thought it was the right move. The one thing you can't have happen in a series like that is have Grant Gano and Hudson Coronati battle it out. You lose a close game, and now you feel like you've burned your number one. But with that said, I have to give a huge shout out to Daniel Cruz of Baconton. Yeah. He pitched an absolute gem. 6 innings, he gave up 5 hits. He gave up the 1 earned run, ultimately ended up leaving the game or coming out of the game in the 7th. Suggs came in, gave up the game-winning RBI, and Cruz almost made a game-saving diving catch out in right field. But I thought Daniel Cruz did a really good job with his command. He ate up the outside corner. He was locating his off-speed pitches. He was mixing it up. He had the hitters off balance all night. They never really made solid contact. It really was a pitcher's duel, both him and Gano, and then obviously on the Gano side, 14 strikeouts. Pitched all 7, and his velocity was down, but the way he threw, you could see when he needed to rev it up with some of those 2-strike counts, he was able to do so. I think the big takeaway from this game for me was it was such clean baseball, and this is what you want to see at this time of the year, right? You have these 2 really good teams that aren't making errors. Yeah. It's not the 19-18 games we've seen before. So if you're Baconton now, it's obviously heartbreaking. But if you're Coach Lowe, what is that mindset like when you're going back to your team and talking about just kind of the year and how it went and reflecting on that?
Well, obviously, we had been talking about the big dogs all game, Peterson, Coronati, but Coronati's not going to be there next year. And I think to have Cruz get this start, if I'm not mistaken, this might be one of his first starts. I mean,
He really didn't pitch early on in the season.
He's been more of a reliever role.
And he came in and he was big in the playoffs.
I mean, and that's big. He's just a sophomore. To have a sophomore guy that you can count on to be like, hey, this is a big game. We need you to deliver. And I don't think you can ask for a much better game than that. You were there, though. Why did he come out? I mean, because
he got into some trouble in the 7th. The bases ended up getting loaded. Like there was some trouble there in the last inning. It really started with Kendrick Noble. He hit a little spinning topper, bunt single. He dove to first base. I have it right there. You'll see him dive into first base right there. He's called safe. Some people said it was a bad call, but it looks like maybe his foot was off the bag, maybe not. He was called safe either way. The bases end up getting loaded in that inning, and I think they just wanted a different arm. They were also coming to a point in the lineup, maybe they felt confident they could get out of it if they brought in Suggs. Okay. And really Tripp Tomlinson, a guy, he comes in to hit his first at bat, and he delivered a nice little flare to right field. Again, Cruz comes up, makes a diving catch.
Almost.
It looks like, and then his arm hits the ground, the ball pops out, and the winning run scores. So, you know what? Both teams played exceptionally well. I was really impressed with both teams, the way they battled it out. Kendrick Noble had a really good day at the plate in both games. Hayden Mullis was big, and then I mentioned Tripp Tomlinson's walk-off. Really, Baconton just couldn't get the bats going.
But like you said, I didn't really answer your question about Coach Logue. I mean, you got to be really proud of this team. It's unfortunate that you had to play the top team, that's just on a different level right now, winning probably back-to-back titles. I would have liked to see this Baconton team go to the finals, and I think they could do it any other year. It just sucks that this was the team that they had to beat, and obviously it was a valiant effort by them. It was a real close game, but
I know Morgan and you, and I think all of us said the winner of this series would probably end up winning state. ECI and Charlton might have something to say about that. The one thing that I might pause for that three-peat. And this is, I'm always very transparent with Lanier County, is they got to swing the bats better. Their bats have been a little bit down. There were some opportunities out there with guys on base. They left some ducks on the pond. And in big-time games, you cannot let that happen because another team might capitalize on that. Baconton wasn't able to get the big hit in the big moments, and they were never really had guys on base for Coronati or Peterson, which is kind of their bread and butter. But Lanier County is going to have to hit better to beat an ECI team that's pretty deep and a Charlton team that just seems to be there each and every year. So I expect Coach White is there now talking about that with them, like, hey, we got to hit better.
Okay, you said they needed to get their bats going, but serious question. How good do the bats need to be if your two starting pitchers combine for, 25 strikeouts in 2 games? I mean...
Yeah, true. It does help when you can win games 2-1 and 3-0. The one concern would be like if they don't have it. Maybe Contreras doesn't have the command that day, or they're piecing them up a little bit and they get some runs across early. I think ultimately they're going to have to hit a little better than they did in this series in order to bring home a state championship. Nonetheless, they are in the state championship for the 3rd consecutive year. They will take on the winner of that ECI Charlton series, which begins tonight or today. And they'll be at Georgia Southern next week. So we're really looking forward to that. Switching gears really quickly before we get to our first break. Cook split their games with Pierce County 12-0, and then they lose 8-3 in game 2. They're in game 3 tonight. What are we hoping to see from the Hornets?
I think they're going to do it. I mean, they just keep winning on the road, and they're really north, right? Like almost in Tennessee, I think, if I know Georgia geography, which I don't.
No, Pierce County is not
is
that
that, is that
that's
east?
Closer. That's close. I think that's east, but up north, northern east. But it's still not
one of
that
our
far
teams
from
is
us.
playing. It's Worth, I think, that's playing like a high.
That's Gordon Lee.
Yeah.
They're all the way up the top.
Okay, well, still to go on the road and just keep winning. I mean, they looked really good game 1. Obviously, we weren't there, but we were getting the stats from it. They looked really good, and it's a shame game 2 didn't go their way. But I think they just have to play decent baseball, and I think they're going to come out on top.
Yeah, when we look at what the Hornets were able to do in that game 1, we talk about big-time performance. To hold a Pierce County team that is really, really tough to no runs, that's a big deal. And then they came out and they struggled in game 2, but they have a chance to make amends for that today in game 3. Also, we mentioned Gordon Lee and Worth. They're going to begin their series today. They have 2. It's way up north as the Rams try to get their way into a state championship. We're going to, of course, have scores from all of that later tonight at 11 to see how they fared and ultimately if they can punch their ticket into a state championship. All right, stay with us. We're going to be switching gears to the pitch on the GHSA side. We're going to be talking soccer when we come back. All right, we're back here on Sports Talk. Thanks for joining us. Blaze, GHSA Soccer, we got a couple of teams vying for those state championships. Friday night, Irwin County girls.
Your girls.
And then girls' day. I love those girls. Sassy Mixon and those girls, Avery. And then, of course, we have Atkinson County, who also makes their 3rd straight appearance into a state championship. I was in a monsoon the other day watching Atkinson County, and they canceled the game because of the rain on Friday. They end up having to play it Tuesday in a monsoon. It ended up being an advantage for them, but when I tell you the field was so sloppy that whoever scored first was going to win, and that's exactly what happened. You used to play soccer. How much does the weather, and I don't know if you ever played anything like that, but how much does the weather impact just how you perform in a game like that?
I mean, so much, and not even, obviously the ball is doing crazy things, but kind of from a physical standpoint, you're worried, like, am I about to rip an ACL right now because this field is so wet? The strikers are not running full speed like they can because they don't want to eat it. You know what I mean? And then from a goalkeeper standpoint, there's nothing worse than a set piece in the rain. You're like, oh my God, I hope my gloves are going to, have a little bit of grip left in them, because if you make contact with that ball, it's so easy for it to go right through those gloves. It's soaking wet. It's a lot. And I'm really happy they came out on top. And obviously WLB owes you a new pair of shoes. I mean,
they're messed up. They're sitting on my porch right now. I don't know if I'm gonna be able to wear them again. They were white. I don't know why I did that. I should have brought my boots, but I never planned for it.
It wouldn't have rained if you wore your boots, and then you would have just looked like a fool. That's how it is.
Probably. Yeah. But I really have to give a shout out to Pearson. They showed up. Everybody had ponchos and umbrellas, and they were there for those guys. And those guys have been telling me for a while now, 3rd time's a charm. This has been a really, really special moment specifically for Coach McKinnon, who I know really wants to bring a state championship back to Pearson. And let's switch gears now to Irwin County girls. This team, you saw them in softball. We've seen, these are some of the same girls.
Oh, yeah, and they're great.
They are a gritty, fun bunch, and they love to just smile and play, but they are physical. And I'm expecting another physical match Friday. And I think if it is a physical match, I do think that benefits Irwin County.
I do too. And like you mentioned, they're a fun team. I mean, I was watching the film that you recorded last week. I said there's nothing better than a team that just like they're having fun. They're doing cartwheels before the game. They're loving each other. They're embracing each other. And then the second that whistle blows, lock in and they're ready to just dominate. And I think that's what really makes them special is that ability to have fun and not take everything too seriously, but boom, lock in and just crush.
This is a team that did not play very well in the first half of that game. They found themselves down 1-0. And even at halftime, I was talking to some of them on the sides, and me and Avery were I'm like, hey, you guys are still in this. And they still are smiling. They're still laughing. They're still positive. And then once the first goal fell, like you just knew they were going to find a way to put another one in the back of the net and come away with the win. It's the resilience of this team. Last year, they couldn't get over that Final Four hump. They do so this year. I'm really excited for them. Of course, we're going to be out there and getting highlights, so you're going to be able to see all those highlights and reaction and scores tomorrow night as well. But tonight, we did have Thomasville in action. Girls and boys are trying to do the clean sweep, a little bit of UConn style in college basketball, and come away with 2 state championships. Make sure you tune back in at 11. We're going to have highlights and reaction and the scores of those games as well. Still to come on this episode of Sports Talk, we have to switch gears now. GHSA is starting to wrap up. GIAA is starting to ramp up their postseason play. We're going to have all of that and more coming up. All right, we're back. Let's switch gears now to the GIAA Diamond baseball playoffs underway. We've had the first round series. We saw Southland move on. A lot of our teams had byes, though. We had Deerfield, Valwood, CCA, all with SGA, all with byes. Their action has kicked off. Valwood getting the clean sweep a day ago over Westfield. They won 10-9 and 8-1, I believe. Now we have to look at this CCA team who's been dominant in single A all year long. Blake Bryant, you got a chance to see him at Truist Park.
It's special.
Do you expect anybody to beat CCA on their way to a possible back-to-back state championship?
I really don't. I mean, they're just making teams look silly. I don't, and it's obviously Blake Bryant. Like you have that, but it's when he's not even on the bump. They're still doing damage. They're a deep team. They're disciplined, well coached. I mean, I just told you earlier today, I'm like, should we get out there right now? I don't want to not see their game.
I expect them to beat
But I think they're going to be, I really think they're going to do it again.
I do as well. That's just a really, really good team. When we move to 2A, SGA got the bye. SGA was in action today. We're going to have those scores for you a little bit later at the 11. SGA is a team that always finds themselves into a state championship. They are the number 1 seed in this bracket. Last year, they lost to Gatewood in the state championship. Gatewood, even though they brought back a lot of talent, has lost some of their luster. They've struggled this year in some games. SGA is one of those teams that just always finds himself in a situation like this. How big would it be for this program to bring home another state championship? They did it in softball.
I'm saying every freaking season we're just like in SGA. They're in the state championship. SGA.
Every sport.
Yeah.
They've been there in football. They've been there in basketball. They've been there in
and they're a bunch of the same
tennis,
kids, no doubt.
But that shows their athletic prowess, right? They are there consistently, and it does lend them kind of an advantage when you get into these situations because they've played in those big moments. How big of an impact is it to have that experience?
It's huge. I mean, we've seen it with Lanier County. We've seen it with all these guys. If you've been here before, you kind of know how to carry yourself. Act like you've been here before is what they always say. And when you have that experience, it goes a long way. But what I want to know is, obviously from a bullpen standpoint, having a bye, that's great. You know, you're getting your guys healthy. But do you think there's kind of an issue with like team morale, like having like Tift area, they just came off a big series win. They're headed into this one to play a Deerfield team that didn't get to play last week. Does that break factor into your team's readiness?
I think more so in other sports, but not in baseball, if that makes sense. I think the health and having your arms rest, and I think that's so important in baseball that I think you're going into a series with no injuries. You have your arms are all healthy. They all can go. They're all available. I think that's big in baseball. I don't really buy into that as much in baseball as I do maybe like a basketball or football where you're keeping that momentum thing going. But what is it going to take for Tift area to go on the road and steal the series from the Knights?
I mean, just seeing them last week, they got to clean it up. their bats were there, their hits were there, the fielding, and obviously it was a wet one. The weather was a little off, but it was tough. Both of those teams, they made like 5 errors within the first 5 innings, and those have a big impact on the game. If it doesn't involve a score, you kind of just get shaken up a little bit. Your shortstop is all of a sudden like, am I going to be able to turn this double play? I just missed the last one. Stuff like that. It's the little things that add up, and if they can clean it up, it's going to be a good game.
We'll have those scores from that one as well tonight at 11. And then finally, we talk about the Valwoods and the Deerfields. When you think about winning a state championship in GIAA, because it's different than, like everybody says, it's private school. But when you compare the talent and you're out there watching them, a lot of these kids can play at the public school. Like, it's not like baseball's not like football, if that makes sense, where football size, you see the difference. There might be 1 or 2 guys on a private school team that's big. Baseball, all these guys can do the same thing.
Right.
They're just going to a different school. How important is it going to be for, I don't want to say the pitching staffs, but the staffs to be able to go deep into games? Because we talk about the depth, and some of these private schools don't have the depth that maybe the public schools have. How important is it going to be for those starters to go deep into games?
I mean, that's huge for everything, obviously for the game itself, but also just knowing that you have your pen available. God forbid a game 3 has to happen. So if those starters, games 1 and 2, can go deep, if Blake Bryan, obviously, if he can give you,
he's going,
and he is, yeah. But if the other, you know what I mean? If they can give you that, that's going to be huge. But you said there's not a huge difference with the big schools versus the GIAA schools. High velo, a 3-4 pitch mix. That's
right.
A 3-4 pitch mix.
Yeah.
I mean, that's plain and simple. So I mean, if these pitchers can keep going, keep delivering, it's huge.
I mean, I think about that. Like, Blake Bryan can go pitch at Lowndes, Park,
and he'll still make them look silly.
Carrollton, like and he's going to make everybody look silly. That's why he's a major league draft pick.
He's going to be in the minors probably next year. He's going to be doing it.
Good point there. All right, we have one more block to go. We're going to tackle some GIAA soccer really quickly before we head out the door, so make sure you stick with us. All right, thanks for joining us here on Sports Talk. One final block really quickly. We have to touch on some GIAA soccer. Terrell Academy girls, big win last night against Lakeview Academy in 2 extra times. They do it weird. They do 10 minutes and then another 10 minutes. Yeah. That's just how they do it. And it's not like sudden death. It's like you have to play it all.
Right, no golden goal.
But they get it done. Big time performance. Talk about what really stood out to you as you were watching those girls kind of run around the field there and finally get it done.
I mean, the Terrell Academy fans don't play. I mean, they were loud, and those parents made sure we knew they were there. I mean, they were supporting the girls. On the field, it was chippy. I mean, there was some high emotions. You could clearly tell. I'm really impressed with Lila Griffin, the Eagles goalkeeper. I mean, she really made some big-time saves that really could have gone 50-50, but she locked it down. She locked down the set pieces. It was huge. Obviously, one of the set pieces, she got scored on, pulled her out of the goal, and the ball kind of bounced around and just kind of ended up in the back of the net. The Terrell Academy, they said it was a handball. They said Lakeview, it was a handball, shouldn't have been a goal. But, that's just the game. Refs make calls, and you just got to roll with it. But I'm really impressed with how those girls battled. I mean, they scored late in the game. The first goal ever of the game was scored, I think, with 7 minutes left. And for a lot of times in soccer, you're like, boom, we just did it, because it's really hard to score in soccer. You can't get too comfortable. 2 minutes later, Lakeview scores. But the girls, they battled, they grinded. Obviously, nothing from the first 10 minutes, but that second 10-minute frame, they got it done, and they held off Lakeview, and I think they're gonna do really well. They do have to play number 1 Frederica. I think if Frederica won, which I think they're going to win. But they're going to have to play them, and it's going to be a hard game. But, they looked good yesterday.
Hollis Baxter scores both goals in that game. Her connection with Baylor Moy is always fun to watch to me, because they're both really good players up front. They have Hadley Webb on the defensive side, who does a really good job. And then Sally Masters is still there. Like, this team has...
They got an 8th grader.
This team has a lot of talent. And they're definitely a team that can make a run. It is going to be a tough match against Frederica, but I do believe the girls can pull it out. We have some more soccer happening today, tomorrow. Brookwood was able to sweep girls and boys.
Boys were
Sherwood is in action tonight. They play Westminster on the girls and boys side. The boys at home, the girls on the road. But this boys team, we're going to have a little piece on one of their players coming up next week. But this is a really, really special team in the Blaze. I know you had an opportunity to go out and talk to Coach just about how this team really kind of feels themselves, how they're coming together, and how special it really is.
The word that we've said all year is the little things. When we're in the locker room, it's just, what do the lockers look like? What does the locker room look like? When they're in the classroom, did everybody turn their stuff in on time? One of the things that I love is we start practice at a specific time, and they're all counting down that time because they know every minute after that's a lap. And so everybody is on the pitch, ready to go, guards ready, without anybody having to tell them. They go into their warm-up lines, they go into their touches and their stretches without anybody having to say anything to them. So when you have leadership from your senior class that's like that, all the way down to the freshmen who just buy in, you don't really have to overcoach them. They just show up and they're ready to work.
Really, really good opportunity for the Eagles to bring home a couple of state championships. I'm excited to watch how they do. We have so much action to get to. We got a lot to get going here. We got scores, we got highlights, we got to put all together, and we're going to be doing it all weekend long. So make sure you stay tuned into WALB Sports. We're going to have all that for you and more. Thank you for joining us on this episode of Sports Talk for Mackenzie Blaze. I'm Aaron Mukes. Have a good night, South Georgia.